Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson, and this is Jectives Typography News number 31. Today is Sunday, January 18th, 2026, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about this week. If last week the foundries went they eased into like the new year, this week they just opened up the fire hose because I think I had a list of like 16 or 17 new releases that I had to cut down to 8. So I mean, everything that you see here is going to be top tier today, all of the new releases. And there were some great ones that I had to cut too, but we can't do this. We can't do it like a 3-hour episode. So some of them needed to be cut. Some of them just didn't necessarily like meet the standard of others. But yeah, we have some really good ones today. Let me go ahead and switch my screen and I'll just give you a preview of these while I'm talking. Screen cap. If you are normally around here and if you're a regular around here and you're wondering why didn't I have this scheduled today, I'm testing something out because I personally don't love when I see a live stream scheduled in my subscriptions because it pops up and you think like, oh, I can go watch a new video, or oh, I can watch this live stream as it's starting, but then you can't. And so I feel kind of disappointed when I see live streams scheduled, even though I 100% know that it makes it easier to plan. But just if you want to catch them live, just know they're always on Sundays at this exact time. If they're not going to be, I'll make a post or something. But yeah, so welcome anyone that's going to join live, and welcome anyone that's watching the replay. Let's go back to the screen so I can tell you what we're doing today. Screen cap. So we have new releases from Frere-Jones, one from Grilli Type. They've actually got the mono as well. Stupid Sands, this one's coming up. That one's going to be from Love Letters, as well as Shoplift Gothic is also going to be from Love Letters. Print Stands is going to be from Faire Type. We also have Astilbe. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Astilbe. That's going to be coming from DualType. We've seen DualType on the channel before. We've seen actually most of these on the channel before. Postamp. This is from Fontfabric. And then we're going to finish things off with Galmi. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But Galmi is coming from, I even talked to them this week. Galmi is coming from Proof of Words. So let me go ahead and put my face cam back on, I guess. I do think that it's important to give you a little preview before we get started because if none of those typefaces are interesting to you, maybe you want to bounce. But we do have some other stories coming up. So I have 2 events that I'm going to talk about. We're going to do that first. The 2026 Recess Creative Playbook released this week, which is super cool. I completely forgot about it. It popped up. I started this channel almost exactly a year ago. YouTube gave me like the announcement of like, hey, 1 year. Typography News really got going a little bit later, but the 2025 Recess Playbook was such a great, it's such a great resource. So I'm definitely going to share the 2026 one. We're going to dive into that. Sharp Type, quick story there, but they made their trials a little bit easier. And then lastly, out of the new featured stories we're going to talk about today, Doug Wilson launched Type Advisor. I had a 30-minute phone call scheduled with him, or Google Meet video call scheduled with him that turned into like 90 minutes. We could have talked for longer, but I had to go do bath time for my daughter. So had to cut that one off at 90 minutes, but had a really good conversation with him. I think that a lot of people are going to be excited about what Type Advisor is. I think he's going to be able to solve a lot of problems for people. So talk about that, talk about the conversation. Let's get into it. Let's get into events first. Switch back, screen cap. Here we go. That's not it. This is it. Okay, so this is the upcoming typography events, and this will be the Jectives website. I'm hoping to get this fully published by the end of January. So that this would be up for February, but for right now, it's super useful for just hopping in and showing you these. The green ones are free, the white ones are paid, but the one I'm most excited about is this one here because this one's going to be free online via YouTube. It's put on by Words of Type. We've talked about Words of Type several times on this channel. There is an official description, but basically we can click this link right here, and it's going to take us to the YouTube channel for Words of Type. Why that? Because that's where it's going to be live streamed. So this is going to be on Friday, January 23rd. All of these details and all of the links for the whole episode are in the description. Nothing is sponsored. Nothing's affiliated. Feel free to click on those knowing they are objectively there. So Words of Type is putting this on. Fabian Harb, hopefully I'm saying that name right. Fabian Harb is going to be the presenter for this. He is one half of Dinamo. I believe there are two halves of Dinamo, at least as far as founders go. But it's going to be a free event, and this one is going to be pretty cool. I think I have a link. No, I don't. This up here, Schriften lettering Écritures, is a book that was originally by Walter Käch. Let's just try and pull it up real quick. Dinamo. This is a book that by Walter Käch. I don't remember when it came out, but let's see if we can find it. Oh gosh, I don't even know where it would be. Hardware. If this isn't it, we're gonna bounce. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so this book was originally written by Walter Käch. It was recently, like last year, it was republished by Dinamo, and it is apparently a classic like lettering book that became very difficult to get your hands on, and they went through and they reprinted the whole thing in very high quality. You can see the reproductions right there. So they are going to do a presentation on the Words of Type YouTube channel. I am subscribed, just not with my Jectives account. And that is going to be on Friday, January 23rd, this week. It's going to be free. It's going to be on YouTube. No clue what time. I don't think there was a time listed on the website, but just subscribe and you'll subscribe to the Words of Type YouTube. It'll pop up. If you catch it live, great. If not, replays are perfectly fine. Replays are actually better. I purposely make this live stream very replay friendly. So the second one is paid. If you're in San Francisco, it's going to be the exhibition tour of Piet Zwart. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Brand architect. This is going to be hosted by Letterform Archive, presented by Rob Saunders. And if we click this link, it is also on Friday, January 23rd. This one's going to be Pacific time, obviously being in San Francisco, 1:30 to 3 p.m. So I am not familiar with this, so that would be really cool if I was in San Francisco, so I could go check this out and learn more. But if you are in the area and you want to go check this out, let's see how much it says it is. It says register to attend. I don't think this one's too expensive. Looks like $40 for friend of the archive. I don't know why you would do that when you could get it for $28 for general admission. So yeah, definitely do the general admission or the student one. You can get it for between $18 and $29 if you are in the area. So let's move on because we have a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. I am going to open up this recess playbook. Actually, I'm going to open this up in the PDF. Let's see. There it is. Okay. I'm going to open that up in the background. While we look at this, this is where you get it. This is linked in the description as well. It's called cometorecess.com, Playbook 2026. You do have to put in your email. Looks like you're required to put in your name and your email. You don't have to put in anything else. And then they will email you a PDF of this. I downloaded this last year. Let me see how many pages this is. This is 222 pages. Some of it will be more, relevant to some people than others. But it's incredibly well put together. It's just this giant collection. And like I said, not everything's going to be relevant to everybody, but let me go ahead and look at the first couple pages here because it's going to tell you what it is and who they are. So what is Recess? Recess is a free online event that happens every month-ish. They say that because sometimes it doesn't happen. I attended a few of them last year. I believe they were on Google Meet. Which isn't my favorite thing to watch on. I would much rather watch on YouTube. Zoom is a second place, but Google Meet's kind of like my last resort in terms of preferred meetings. But they're pretty cool. They have creatives come on there and they talk about things. They talk about things that are not their own work. So I think that's what's most interesting about it. But the Recess Playbook, this right here, they're going to give you an explanation. It's a bunch of, should we take our face off? Yeah, I'm going to take my face off of here. It's a bunch of resources and inspiration and things like that. But the way they get this information is by talking to different contributors. And I apologize, some of these pages load kind of slow because it is such a big book and it's such a big PDF and it's so high resolution. But I have a few highlights that I want to look through. This is the table of contents right here, so you can get an idea of everything that's going to be included in this. See if we can make this full screen. I'm not sure what the keyboard shortcut is for. Nope, that's fine. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's pretty big. So first thing I want to look at is resources, because I think this is the absolute best thing in this book. There's some other cool stuff, but the resources are what made me really, really appreciate this last year. Starting out with tools and hacks. There are a bunch of different just tools you can click on, and everything on here is a link. So let me find one that we can. I've heard of Photopea before, so let's go ahead and click on that. I believe this is like an online version, you know, like an online Photoshop clone. So you can see, you can just click these things inside of the workbook and they'll take it to you. I don't know if any of this is affiliate or anything like that. I'm not sure if these links are going to earn them money. I didn't read any disclosures of that, so I would assume no. But there's just like really cool things that other designers like, and then they're all compiled by Recess into this one giant PDF. So you can see like font share, get emoji, Unicode search. So there's definitely some typography stuff in here, but it's not only typography stuff. This is a design creative playbook. So not even just design, because there's going to be some music and stuff like that on here as well. But yeah, just like hacks and things like that. Let's go ahead and scroll a little bit further through this. Organizing and productivity. I'm sure some people could go for that. And some of the things in here are like apps or websites or stuff like that. Other things are literally just like this, like, hey, here's a cool keyboard shortcut to use. Here's like, here's some tip or trick that I learned to like be more focused. It's stuff like that. We've got books in here. This is really nice. I don't agree with all these, of course, but these are the books that they've got listed on here. Brand Gap, I am a fan of that one. I used to read that one over and over when I was in school and when I was freelancing, doing branding. But yeah, you'll probably see some books in here that you recognize. Yeah, okay. So I'm not going to dig too much into all of those. The other thing I wanted to look at on here is the AI survey, because I thought this was kind of interesting. AI is just a constant topic of conversation and it's not going anywhere. So I do think it was kind of interesting that they go into it here and they talk about like, how many of you are using this? What are you using it for? Only 4% of people said like they don't touch AI for anything. And I think eventually that will change just because everything gets integrated. I mean, you'll always have like the people that completely reject something. You know, I'm sure that there are people still shooting on film and stuff like that. I know when I worked at Louis Vuitton, I was the art coordinator for like James Turrell's installation that was there, and the photographer that photographed his pieces only shot on film because it just captured it better. So you'll have people like that just like remain, I don't know, for lack of a better word, Luddites. But I think most people will start using some sort of AI tools, and this is a kind of an interesting way for creatives that are talking about how they use it to inform other people how they use it, how they feel about it, things like that. Okay, enough AI stuff. There's a slow survival kit on here, which I thought was kind of funny. And so it's got like, how do you get inspired by slow, you know, how do you slow down and stuff like that? So there's screen-free creativity. Okay, let me see. Slow inspiration. Here we go. So there's like bingo art, analog C, voicemail. I don't know. There's all of these things that I've never even heard of. One person says they use an iPod video. There's just some really cool stuff on here that we obviously don't have time to dig into. But I thought that it was pretty interesting to share this because I love digging through these types of things and clicking on the different links. Last thing I'm going to show in here, and this is the, what are they calling this? The Creative Kickstart. Let's wait for this to load. Okay, maybe it's not going to. There it goes. The Creative Kickstart. And this just gives you like a year-long list of things that you can do to kickstart your creative stuff. And they say some of it will only take up like 10 minutes. Some of it is like an all-year, you know, thing that you just kind of do all the time. So they've got a few different things listed here, but then you go down and they break them down in more time. So like the first one here says time commitment, 1 week. That's nice that they give you that. Other ones, this one's 24 hours. So the 24-hour one is like go offline for 24 hours, make something without being able to look anything up, trust your memory, use instincts, plus your weird jumbled brain. There's another one here that says time commitment of 1 week, give something up for 1 week that you think is you need to be creative. No playlist, no Pinterest, no coffee, watch what fills the gaps. Yeah, I don't think those are good examples of what to give up. I think like those aren't things that you need. I would use like an actual creative crutch. Like for me, I use Affinity every week. So I would give up Affinity for the week and see like how I could make my life still work. I'd give up something that is actually a crutch in your creative workflow. Obviously, don't pick it when you have a huge deadline, but I think that would be like a really good one. And there's a bunch of them on here. So that is it for the Creative Playbook. That was by Recess, the 2026 Creative Playbook. I know it says Kickstarter on the screen because that's the screen, or that's the section that we're in. But that is that. Next up is SharpType. Let me go ahead and pull up their Instagram because this is where the announcement took place. I'm going to get a drink of water. This billboard right here, I was like, what is this even going to be? All you can try. This is a super short story that we're going to get into, but I do find it nice. Like I find it like an optimistic thing, and anything that's optimistic I want to point out, especially when it's type related. This says, we have received your emails and taken action accordingly. Just updated the site to make trial fonts easier to find and less annoying to download. Our entire library of typefaces is free to try. I am not 100% sure what they were talking about when it comes to this being annoying or difficult, because I download so many trials for Typography News that I can't remember who does what. But I have plenty of SharpType trials, so I know that I haven't had any trouble. But now you can see up here on the top right, there's a giant trial fonts button, and it is highlighted. It is ready for you to see right there. I'm going to go ahead and click on this because it pop up right here. I did test this out. All you have to do is put in your name and your email. Then you click you accept the terms and conditions. You don't have to do the new releases, but I would, just because it's nice to get updated. One thing about this is that it's just these characters right here. There's no OpenType features and limited character set. Not the best trial font in the world. We know we've definitely seen better ones. We looked at some better offerings last week. But any trial font is better than none, and they make these super easy to get. So you don't have to go from page to page to get them. You can go through, click the ones you want. Rotina, definitely go check that one out. Record Disc was pretty cool. Where's Record Laser? Record Laser was pretty cool too. So you can just go through and click all these different ones. I'll give a quick shout out here. Sharp Earth Mono did not make the cut this week, but that was a new release this week as well. So you can just go through like this. You can download as many as you want. And when you hit request, it's not like an actual request that needs to go get approved by anyone. They'll just email them to you right then. Let me go ahead and, since we're here, let's go ahead and look at Sharp Earth Mono for 2 seconds. The reason I didn't cover Sharp Earth Mono is because you can see all these different Sharp Earths. It's just an expansion on what already exists. So I didn't feel like it was super newsworthy, but I guess they're getting a quick shout out here. Anyway, so here is Sharp Earth Mono. Let me get this back down to normal screen size. There's Sharp Earth Mono. The reason I wanted to show this is because there's also a try button right up here in the top. So the same way that you can do it on the home page, you can do the try right here, and it's going to pop up a screen. It's already got it selected for you. So they are, listening to the feedback like they say here on Instagram, and they made it super easy to get these. There are plenty of places that have it just as easy to get it, but I do think it's worth pointing out when type foundries are listening to their users, their customers, their designers, typographers, I think that it deserves, a tiny little round of applause. So, tiny little round of applause for SharpType for making their trials much easier. This next story is about Doug Wilson launching Type Advisor. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my face cam on for this. Let me get a drink first, and then we'll turn on the face cam. Okay. Let me see. There we go. I need to get one of those little pads, one of those, what are the Elgato things, Stream Decks. Really don't want to be locked into like another Corsair product. I've just gotten rid of all my Corsair products. But yeah, maybe I'll do a DIY one. Maybe I can figure something out so I don't have to try and click the buttons. This next story is about Doug Wilson launching Type Advisor. I think we're not scrolled up to the top. Maybe we are. So Type Advisor is a new business that he's launched, essentially doing all the things that he's done for the last 20 years, but now packaging it into this brand, to this company. Like I said at the top of the show, I had a 30-minute phone call scheduled with him, which you can do right here. And I will get into this at the end. Super easy to set up a call. You just select the date. pick the time. I'm sure you've probably seen a similar system like this before. And then I'll go ahead and show you. Next, put in your information. You put about what you want to talk about, schedule the event. Boom, that's it. If you're a bot or something like that, like I'm sure he has some sort of system to deny the calls. But yeah, I set it up. I got approved in like 2 seconds, and we emailed about what we were going to talk about. And yeah, obviously I talked to him because I wanted to report on this on Typography News, but I wanted to learn more about it so I could tell you guys. So that's what I'm going to do now. That's how you set up a call. I'll mention that again at the end. But you can also email him if you don't want to do the call. I know not everybody wants to do that, but I would encourage you to do it because I think my conversation with him was very enlightening and very useful. So I just think you can communicate things much faster through a call. I'm going to zoom in on this site a little bit. Super simple site. I think that he does a great job with his call to action on here. I've got some notes if you see me looking over because I don't want to miss anything. But yeah, I think that this website does a great job of a quick elevator pitch. There's just these 2 sections here, these 2 sections at the bottom, and the buttons to get done what you need to get done. So who is Type Advisor? Doug Wilson right there. Like I said, he has 20 years of experience. Gives him some street cred here. He's got some names listed. I'll go ahead and read these for you. These are places that he has helped doing what he's now offering through Type Advisor. So Nike, Netflix, Sony, EA Games, Rafa, and Hearst. He also worked with, it says, dozens of independent type foundries, but Monotype's the big one, obviously. Monotype, Linotype, Adobe that he's worked with as well. You can see some other things there, but here there are some actual links that you can go click on, and you can see this is one of the first things that I read by him. I had followed him on typo.social. He's very active there. I've seen him pop up a few times. But I started following him when I learned about the Linotype film and the Linotype book that he's writing. And then I saw Doug Wilson listed on this Frere-Jones blog entry, and I was like, why is this guy showing up in so many different places? So I started following him on Typo Social. And then I felt comfortable, to reach out and do this interview because of that, that familiarity with his work. But yeah, so he's done a lot of copywriting. He's done a lot of consulting. He understands typography. He went to school to be a designer, fell in love with typography, didn't want to be a type designer himself, but really is really enthusiastic about the type industry and type foundries, and working with typographers and type foundries and businesses to find out like what fonts are right, and to help designers, type designers, better tell the story and better market their typefaces. I'm considering making like a whole video about like things that I learned from my interview with Doug Wilson, or something along those lines, because 90 minutes of conversation, obviously you can't have that conversation if obviously I couldn't have that conversation if I didn't feel like he was being genuine, or wasn't actually into typography and was just trying to do something, set up a business for some bad reasons. That's not what this is at all. And I don't think that he would talk to me for 90 minutes if he didn't understand my genuine curiosity, because I told him from the beginning, like, I'm not a client, I'm just doing this to report the news. But you can see a list of things here. I did ask him why it's so broad, but it is because his experience is so broad. Copywriting, case studies, art direction, interviews, marketing materials, specimen design, podcast production, English translations, font library strategies, industry trend research. You can read the rest. I think the biggest takeaway from this, though, for me and from probably the people watching this, is that, and this expands beyond type design, because I used to have this problem when I would create brand identities. I'm going to go ahead and, let's just go ahead and keep this on here. I'm going to put my face on. So I think my biggest takeaway for Type Advisor and Doug Wilson is that as creatives, as designers, we're very good at what we do. We're very good, not me, but like type designers are very good at making typefaces. Designers are very good at making designs. Typographers are very good at setting text and doing design work with typefaces. But just making a typeface isn't going to sell. If it, I think one of the things he said, like, you can work on a typeface for 5 years, sit in your basement and just make the most perfect, beautiful typeface ever. But if no one sees it, what's the point? Like if no one uses it, you're not going to earn any money from it. And like, what did you get out of that? I guess there is the, the journey of the whole thing. But I think that the biggest takeaway for this is that he is someone that understands the type industry. He understands how to market typefaces. He's clearly an excellent copywriter. He's writing for Frere-Jones. He's writing, about arguably one of the biggest typefaces in the last, 50 or 100 years. Like Gotham is going to be one of those typefaces that sits alongside Futura and Baskerville and whatever else, Avenir, Helvetica. Like it's one of those typefaces. And Tobias Frere-Jones is trusting Doug Wilson to write the story of that. I think that tells you all you need to know in terms of like street cred about like working with foundries. But aside from that, I think that Type Advisor is going to be an excellent resource for anyone who is getting into typography that doesn't understand the full landscape. Me, I've been in this heavy for like 1 year. I have a type design, or not a type designer. I've been a graphic designer for, 10 or 15 years, depending on when you start, like when you define it. Is it when I started school? Is it when I graduated school? But professionally for over a decade. And now that I've gotten into typography, like in this business, like seriously for the last year, there's so much that I don't know. And a resource like Doug Wilson is a great place for people to go to learn how all of these things work. In the Midwest, we'd say how the sausage is made. I don't know if this is probably a term everywhere, right? Doug Wilson knows how the sausage is made in the type industry. So if you are at all having questions, the phone call is free. Sorry, I'm looking away because I'm trying to turn on the screen cap again. If you have like any interest in anything that I just said, and again, none of this is sponsored, none of this is affiliated. I'm getting nothing from Doug if he gets any business from this. But if you have any interest in any of this, you can do a free call with him for 30 minutes. And that's what I would do. Like if any of this sounds interesting, if you're 100% not going to give him any business, let him know that in the email, but he'll probably still talk to you. I mean, he talked to me. But I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'd be interested to interview him like 6 months, a year from now. Probably a year would be better. A year from now, and see like where all this went. But if you have any interest in the video that I talked about, like the things that I learned from him, because there was a lot, go ahead and let me know, and we will do that. I'm gonna get a drink. We have our first typeface, our first new release coming up here, and this one is accordingly from Frere-Jones. We just talked about them. So I'm gonna get a drink of water and we will get into Cassis. So first new release, we do have 8 of them this week, so I'm gonna move pretty quick through these. I really have to this week because the last one is my favorite one to talk about this week, so I gotta have enough time for it. But Cassis is the first one. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I did look up how to say it, and I believe Cassis is the correct way to say it. Nina Stussinger, I think is how you say her name as well. I've watched a lot of presentations. Every time someone introduced her, they didn't say her last name, and I think for the exact same reason. But one person did pronounce it, and they said Stussinger. So I'm going to go with Nina Stussinger. This is Cassis. This website right here, or this web page right here, is the main website. But what I think you can get much more value out of is the blog entry. So this blog entry was written by the author and the type designer are the exact same. Cassis was a type design. Let me go ahead and go back here. Obviously, we can see this is a geometric sans serif, right? And this is what I was going to relate to Doug Wilson for 2 seconds. Not only does he write for them, but like the story part of it, like you need to be able to tell a story, because if you saw this and you were just like, okay, a new geometric sans serif, there are 7 weights to it, there are no italics. The glyph count's solid, 750. The feature count is solid, 19 open type features. But why buy this over something else? The price is $200 for the full family on desktop. That's solid. You can see some of the features here. You can see it's got decent language support on there as well. But why buy, one geometric sans over another? For me, that turns into the story. If you watched last year, there were a ton of new neo-grotesques that released that are, Helvetica alternatives at this point. Any neo-grotesque is a Helvetica alternative. but what got me excited about those was the story. So I think Cassis is the same thing there. Like, what makes me interested in this is the story. So this started during her, it says 2014 there, during her type media program at The Hague, obviously Netherlands. Always great for typography. She grew up in Switzerland though. So her, one of the things that she talks about in here is that she was drawn to the typefaces that weren't perfect because most of the typography in Switzerland is very perfect. So this says 2 generations of Antwerp street signs. And these are the ones that she was very interested in, these blue enamel street signs that were designed by engineers, not type designers. So that's what makes them different. You can see on here, she's pointing out, look at like the lowercase or the uppercase E on this bottom left here where it says Gearstrat. I'm not sure if that's right or not. But you can see the E, that crossbar, that middle bar on the E is the equal length of all of the, they're all equal length when typically the middle line there would be shorter like the F up here. Another thing you'll see in this Torfbrug, I apologize, I do not know whatever language this is. You can see that the middle line of the R, the F, the B, and the R again, they're all in the same spot. Typically that wouldn't be the case. Typically they would be at different places. And non-type designers see these sometimes and they'll be like, oh, look how dumb they are. They didn't even match up the crossbar. Well, they don't typically match up because you're trying to balance out the letters. But an engineer did this and she found this to be an interesting thing. One of the other things she noted was like the super low crossbar on the A. We'll get into some of these other things. But so this started out in, let me triple check where this is at. Antwerp. Is Antwerp in, is this, let's just look this up real quick because I want to get my stories right. Antwerp is in Belgium. Okay, so these are Belgium street signs. So it started out in Belgium while she's studying in the Netherlands. And then she moves to the US in 2016. She moves to New York City. Here's another another train station sign that she found really interesting. She really liked this big crossbar in the middle of the K. So this one I believe is in Switzerland because she was talking about how it stood out among all of the perfect typography that's there. So the other thing she noted was, sorry, I know I was talking about New York City. We're going to get to it in 2 seconds. The other thing she noted is that that Cassis is much more like this diagram here on the bottom, where the letters are all based on like circles and squares, whereas the top one there is Futura, and it's got the classical proportions where it's got like the wide O, the wide N, but then like the really compressed E and S based on the golden rectangle and stuff like that. And then there are the other ones where you would compress like your O and your N to make them more similar. But hers is pretty boxy and round. Mentioning here another street sign inspired typeface, Gotham. She's talking about this Coles sign. So you can see the S here. This was a post from Stephen Coles. I'm going to get to New York City. Then she moves to New York City and she starts to see typography there, and it expands what the project is. So please go read this. I know that I'm kind of lingering on this quite a bit. Here you can see the E right there. But yeah, we don't have time to like read. This though I thought was the last thing that we'll look at. This is pretty interesting. This is how the typeface evolved. So like we said, it started in 2014 when she was studying at Type Media. And you can see quite a few changes here where you can see the Q's changed, the G changed where it doesn't have that vertical line there anymore. The R changed. I think she said she got rid of like the cutesy R or something like that. So the R changed from the top to the bottom there. And then the A also, she said this pot-bellied A turned into an A that looks more like the S. And I think that all these changes are excellent changes. I do like the old R, but I think when you see this whole thing all together in Affinity, you will agree that the changes that she made were excellent. I do have a full version of this typeface that was, I asked for a review license from Frere-Jones. They did supply that for me, thankfully. Because the free version, it's going to show, like if you go into it, I don't know if I want to, okay, I'll show you the type. Let me go to the glyph browser real quick. So you can see over here, I can see that this has all 650 glyphs. If I were to switch this to the trial version, it's going to have all 750 glyphs, but a bunch of them are just going to say trial, 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 trial. So you might get this and think like, oh, cool, they're given like the full version of this for me to test out. They're not. They replace all of the glyphs with the word trial. So let's go ahead and go back to the temp version. So it says temp because that is, I have a review license that I can test this out for 60 days thanks to Frere-Jones. But this is Cassis. I always like to zoom in. Let's go ahead and do this. Zoom in on these and you can see she's got a pretty low crossbar on the A there, but it's not insane. But you can see the B is pretty balanced there. The E is almost perfectly aligned with all four of those, or all three of those lines there. The F is very long as well. So she's pulling in all of these pieces of inspiration. There's that crossbar on the K from the train station, but it's not as exaggerated. So she basically took all of these designs and turned it into something that's usable as a font. The one thing you might not have noticed yet is that this actually has a very slight reverse contrast on it. Let me go ahead and pull up the layers here. Boom. Okay, so the top one here and the side one are equal in, they're just rotated. They're equal, and you can see the top is a little bit bigger than the bottom. We can also look at the lowercase o here. Same thing. O is just an easy one to look at, but the contrast is obviously going to be reversed on all these. So the top one there is 12 pixels, the bottom or the side one is 12 pixels as well, but you can see there's a pretty big gap there. So another just like funky thing that she's gone and done on here is added this like slight reversed contrast. And I thought it was funny in that blog article, she did make a comment noting that when she first showed this to some of her colleagues, they were like, some of them were like, this is how contrast is supposed to work, as if she didn't understand that. It was a design choice, and I think it's a pretty fun one. So let's go ahead and look at some of the features since we do have the full typeface. Go ahead and do this. There is a J with the top bar on there. It's called J with crossbar, but I mean, I guess we could call that a crossbar. So that's one of them. You can also do a simple A. So it does have the traditional geometric sans serif A we can switch to. There is a square M. So we have the splayed M here, which I think is very nice. But you could turn it into a square one if you want it to be a little more, if you were trying to squeeze these letters, kern these real tight, obviously the square one's going to work a lot better. So it's nice that you do have that option. But I do think the splayed one is nicer, gives a nicer rhythm. Q with a crosstail. So you can see this very unique Q where it's almost like this spiral where the stroke just continues, starts at the bottom when whips around and just pops that tail out. I really like this, but if you want the crossbar, you can get a little more traditional there. And then there's also some uppercase punctuation and things like that, so you can add in. The other thing that you're going to get with a premium typeface like this are small caps. So wait, are these real small caps or not? Maybe this one doesn't have small caps. Let's go look at this. Let's go look at the website and we can find out for sure. I think that it's very impressive. We're going to go back into, we're going to go back in there in 2 seconds. I just want to see, no, I don't think this does have small caps. We have so many fonts to go through today. I know some of them do, this one does not. But the last thing we're going to look at here is just how does it look in body copy? This is a typeface that is designed to be large. It's not meant to be used in body copy, but there might be a case where like you've already got the typeface. It's got all of these styles. Maybe I want to throw it in body copy anyway. And I think it works. The spacing, it might look a little bit tight in some places, and maybe I've got these lines a little too long. But I think that it's passable. I do have the default spacing on this, I believe. Yeah, I'm not using the baseline grid. I have the default spacing on there. I'd probably space this out a little bit more just to get a little bit more breathing room out of it. But before we go, let me go ahead and show you the different weights on this. It goes from thin. It's pretty nice. Goes from thin. Oh, we can't do that. Goes from thin all the way up to extra light, light, regular, medium, bold, and black. The last thing to point out here, you can see these vertical cuts on the C. That is another very distinct design choice that she made. This is something that Futura does too, but it's great for German has a lot of CKs and CHs. So if you were doing something like that, you want to be able to push them close together, and you can't do that if you don't have you know, C's that don't have the vertical cuts on it. So same thing with the G there. It's got the vertical cut. So I think this is a really nice typeface. I love that since she switched that A to the Potbelly one, the A and the S just flow so smoothly next to each other there. But I do think Cassis is a very nice release from Frere-Jones. Like I said, it is $200 for the family on desktop. The license is fine. Frere-Jones does a good job with their license. I do have a PDF specimen, but we're not going to hop into that. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next new type release. Another big one here. This one's coming from Grilli Type. Let me pull it up before I start talking. The next new release is from Grilli Type, and this is GT Canon. If you are familiar with Grilli Type, you know that they always do these crazy mini sites. So we're going to go to that. But first, let me go ahead and show you how big this typeface is. This has 224 styles. Let me repeat, 224 styles. And thankfully, this does come in a variable font version. I don't have a full font for this one. I did reach out to them, but I just have the trial version to show you today. But you can get an idea of what's going on here. 224 styles is insane. You can see a few of the features here, but we're going to hop into the mini site where we can see much, much more. One thing I will point out, though, is that GT Canon was made to be a companion to GT Standard. Do I have that on here? Yeah, so I have GT Standard and GT Canon that we are going to pull up together and look at in Affinity. But just so that you have a preview of what this is, GT Standard was supposed to be like the standard sans serif typeface. GT Canon is the standard serif typeface. It's meant to work in every situation in like contemporary times. This mini site though was a little confusing to me at first because you just pop up here and it's got these different terms and stuff. And you're like, okay, sure, these are typography terms, but you'd click on one and it would be like an article that someone else had written. So this was like, you know, a poem or something. So I was very confused at first. If you want to learn about the typeface, go to information, and this is where we will spend most of our time with this font. Like I said, we're gonna have to move fast, but this is where we're gonna spend most of our time for GT Canon. Let me get a drink and we will get through this. Okay, so I am going to go through this because I think they do a very good job, as always, with these mini sites of talking about the design of the font, but also demonstrating like what it's doing. So they're saying like this isn't based off of any historical reference, anything like that. It's based in digital. Obviously, there's nothing that comes from thin air. So even though they're saying like we didn't reference anything historically, every typeface comes from historical typefaces. So that's my one little bone to pick about that. But you can see right here, this is going to come in 4 different optical sizes. You've got 3 different optical sizes. I apologize. 4 different styles, 3 different optical sizes. There's micro, text, and display, and then there's also a monospace version of this. So they really do think ahead in terms of like what this is going to be and like trying to make this be the one serif typeface that you need. Do they accomplish that goal? We can answer that question at the end of this. But we'll go ahead and that is the goal, essentially, to be like the standard serif typeface. You can see they've got the 3 different optical sizes here where it goes from micro, text, and display. Nice to see. They've got a monospaced one. There are not optical sizes for that because monospace is just going to be monospaced. They do have 5 different widths here though, and these are variable, so you can slide the axis and really refine these if you wanted to. But 5 different like instances inside of the variable font. So it's going from condensed all the way up to this super expanded one here. They just call it expanded. Then they're going from light all the way up to black, light, and then italic for each one of those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 different weights on this, 5 different widths, and 3 different optical sizes plus mono. Like I said, huge typeface, 224 styles, but you could, do like essentially like an infinite number if you were working with the variable typeface. So they're just showing you some of the optical sizing and stuff like that right here. Digital shaping, this is where they're talking about how it was not based on anything historical, but it was digital. And you can see one reason they're zooming in right here and showing you this is because if this was like a calligraphy based historical historically accurate typeface, you would get like different endings to these terminals based off of what instrument was used to create them. Whereas this here, you can see how incredibly sharp these are. Like this is 100% digital. This is 100% like modern. There's no like faux broad-nibbed pen terminals on these. It's all digital. Let's continue on. So you can see here's a good demonstration of the sizes and stuff like that. And we'll play around with the axes in Affinity, but you can see that they've really gone in and refined these for the different sizes and opening the counters, you know, closing the counters, playing around with some of the contrast and things like that. Here's the extended. You can see just how wide that can get. Like it can get tiny, tiny narrow and super, super wide. So GT Canon is, you know, it's really putting forth the effort to make this like the one typeface that you need for every possible situation. You can see the italics here. There's not actually, they're showing this as if you can convert between the two, but there's not actually, if I pull it up real quick right here, that is the other one. There's not actually an axis here to do italics. So this is just for demonstration here, this little morph between the two, but just understand there's not like a variable axis that you can slide on that. Doesn't take away from it at all. I'd actually prefer that, because if there's no axis for the slant, then you know that it's actually italic and not just an oblique. This is the monotype right here that they're doing. And again, this is not a slider that you can do. They're just doing this for demonstration purposes, but they're showing you that there is a difference. It's not just like the same font that's spaced out differently. They really went in, and you can see with the M there particularly, you can see the change in the contrast. You can see with the Y as well, the top of the T changes. You know, it's got the same DNA, but they really put a lot of effort and work into it. I love these little sliding things right here. So this is GT standard. That's the sans serif we're going to look at here in a second. And if we swipe across, it turns into GT Canon, which is what we're looking at today. The serif is Canon, the sans serif is standard, and you can see something super interesting, right? They're taking up the same space. So in theory, you could replace one for the other and hopefully not break your layout too much. I mean, essentially, probably not break it at all. There is going to be one issue that I'll bring up when we get to Affinity. So this isn't going to be like 100% perfect. And that comes down to the default leading, but you can fix that if you use a baseline grid. And again, they've got this little thing here where you've got GT standard on the left, GT Canon on the right, and you can see that you could perfectly match these in their width as well. So if you wanted to have two super wide ones and you wanted to somehow mix the sans with the serif, you can do that. Yeah, it's so impressive, one, that they just do this, but then two, that they're able to demonstrate this with these many sites so well. One of the things that I talked about when I talked to Doug Wilson about Type Advisor was that the Grilli type essentially treats these type releases like a Marvel movie or something, or like a blockbuster film, because the way that they do these, I guess I could put my face back on, the way that they go about these type releases with these mini sites, I feel like they put all of this effort into designing the typeface, and then they put almost an equal amount of effort into marketing and putting together these mini sites, because the reason I mentioned like a blockbuster movie is because they essentially have like the movie budget and the marketing budget, and they're almost equal. Like it really feels like someone put as much effort into that mini site as they do, you know, the full font or type design. I'm sure that's not actually the case, because I know type design takes so much effort. But compared to some of the typefaces that we look at on here, where essentially it's, you know, it's nothing. Like let's go back to this site here. A lot of type foundries, and I understand that it takes time and effort and resources to put the mini site together, but a lot of type foundries, this is what their presentation is. Black text on a white background. If you're lucky, maybe they'll give you a dark mode version of it. It's just this right here. Like that's it. The mini site, I don't know that Grilli typefaces, Grilli type, like their fonts, they are excellent, but I don't know that they're so much better than everything else. But these mini sites do such a good job selling them that people get excited about it. They spend time in these websites, and it's just really hard to beat. I'm going to have to move super fast through this because we still have like 6 typefaces to get through, and we only have 34 minutes to do it, which is super unfortunate. But we did cover almost everything in this. The one thing that I wanted to showcase for you, let's go ahead and look at the sliders real quick. I know we looked at them, but let's just zoom in on this GT. Sorry. If you're used to using design software, you know why I hit V there. Let me just click on the arrow so I don't accidentally type. So they do have 3 different sliders on this, and you're going to need them because with 224 styles, like, it is insane trying to scroll through these. Like, you can look at this list. It's insane. You don't want to have to do that. Obviously, you will if you want like the perfect instance of it. But if you're just playing around trying to get it right, these sliders here are excellent. So you can do the width like we saw, where you can go from super tight all the way to super wide. It doesn't even fit on the screen anymore. Let's pull this back down to 100. And then you can do the weight. That's, oh, it's because we've got the optical size super high. So like, you know, we're not going to be able to play around with this perfect because like the weight is going to go from one to the other. But if you add the optical sizing to it, it's going to decrease the contrast. So there's your weight. Like I said, there are italics for this, but there's not a slider for it. So you would need to go in and go to the italic version of it. Maybe I didn't download it. Oh, you know what? There is no italic version for this, right? No, there is. I'm crazy. Hold on. There is an italic version. It's just going to have a different slider. So you can do this drop down right here. Let's just pick any of them. Doesn't matter. And then you can do the slider for this one. So did I not click italic? That one's italic. Okay. Then we've got the slider here. So you can do the width with the italic as well. Okay. I apologize. We do have to move on though. The one note that I wanted to make here, the one issue that I had. So this is Grilli type. On the left, we've got standard. On the right, we have Canon, which is the font we're looking at today. And I've highlighted a line here, and it's because the final words in GT Canon are at the bottom there, the final word, and then those words are much higher in the sans. Why is that? That's because the default leading on this is different. The default leading for the sans is much tighter. So if you were gonna like use these without messing up, you know, interchange these without messing up your spacing, you do have to use like a baseline grid, or at least set the leading to be the same. I would recommend using a baseline grid because then you don't have to think about it. But you can see here, when I set these both to 60 on the baseline grid, probably a little tight, but I think that by default, the sans was 52, the serif was 62. So I just set it at 60. This is, you can see that now they line up perfectly. So they do line up perfectly, just not by default when it comes to spacing. So they will line up in terms, like you can see these first 2 lines here, like whatever these, you know, it is placeholder text. You can see these first 2 lines here, they end on the same words, but the reason that it doesn't end on the same final words in these paragraphs is because of the leading, the line spacing. So fix that if you do use these. Next we're going to look at here is stupid sans. I am going to go back into the browser and turn my face off. We got to move fast. Luckily, Stupid Sans and Shoplift Gothic are both by the same foundry, so it's going to be easier to talk about these. Both of these are going to be on Future Fonts. So the first one here is Stupid Sans. I recently made a vow to not read to really not try to read these descriptions anymore of any font, because a lot of times it's just flowery and it's, you know, it's so boring that when I rewatch my videos, I skip those parts of it. So I know that you guys don't want to listen to me read it, but this one is worth reading. Just 3 sentences, 3-4. Does the world really need another geometric sans serif? You'll be the judge. No BS origin story here. It's so simple. We call it Stupid Sans. No fluff, just a font that gets out of the way and does its job. I realize that that is a description in and of itself, but Stupid Sans here, as you can see, is geometric sans serif. I'm going to open up the PDF because I do think the PDF does a quicker job of showcasing this, and all the specimens are going to be the same. This only has 2 styles right now. It's got No, sorry. This one has 3 styles. I have Shoplift Gothic up at the same time. This has extra light, medium, and black right now. It's going to be static, obviously. I think it's possible one day this turns into a variable, but as you know, on future fonts, they are releasing fonts in beta, and you purchase them now, you get all the updates for free, and you help independent type foundries get their work made. So this is $60. Great all-inclusive license on this one. It is going to be static, like I said, 305 glyphs right now, but I do expect that to be expanded. 8 open type features, and yeah, it's a sans serif, like it's a geometric sans serif. In complete contrast to the Frere-Jones release that we just looked at of Cassis, this one has no giant blog backstory. It's just like, here's a cool font. If you like it, buy it. But it's just a stupid sans. Exactly. He does a lot of these fun, Sebastian does a lot of these fun illustrations and stuff with his typefaces. Let's go ahead and look at the other one, also in future fonts since we're here. The other release, he released 2 typefaces this week. These are coming from Love Letters. They're available on future fonts, linked in the description. Like I said, not affiliate, I'm not going to earn any money if you click the links. Shoplift Gothic here, though, it does have a backstory. This one is based, it takes inspiration directly from Colin Brignall's ITC Corinthian, and it doesn't just like release the same 4 typefaces that are available. Let me go ahead and show you these on my fonts. So here's the original here. Let's do something here. Let's open up this one and we'll tile these so I can show you these both at once. So Shoplift Gothic over here. I have these saying Shoplift Gothic, but this is actually Corinthian on my fonts over here. I just did this so that we could look at these on the screen there as we scroll through this one. So you can see these are pretty similar. I think he's getting pretty faithful to the original, but you can see on the left here, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 versions of this. There's 3 different weights, and then they've got a bold condensed version. There's only 4 weights available on the original. So his plan is to expand this into many, many more styles. Right now, it only comes in 2. It's coming in light, and let's see, it's coming in light and black, I think. It's coming in like the super light version and the super heavy version, and I'm assuming he's going to be able to interpolate between those 2 pretty easy. So there's the light version right there. I think he's actually calling this thin. So there's the thin version of Shoplift. Let's go look at both of these in affinity. First one is Stupid Sans, as you can see. It is just a geometric sans serif, but I think it's doing some fun things. You know, it's doing a lot of stuff that you'll recognize, but it's got that bow-legged K on there, which is kind of fun. But yeah, it's just another geometric sans serif. The only difference here is that this one is from an independent designer. I know there are other geometric independent typefaces, but that's what this is. It's a nice geometric sans serif. Let me go ahead and show you a couple of the features on here because they do have a few. He does have a few with this one. So if we look at the A, the M, and the N, you can get stylistic versions of that. Okay, so this is the lowercase. This is going to have a lowercase, this is going to have a single story A, so you can go to like the typical A that you would see on a geometric sans serif. The next one, though, I think is a little more interesting. You're going to get the rounded A, M, and N, and I think W and U as well. So I know it's going to be kind of small on the screen, but if you look closely, look at the A, M, N, U, W, and the Y, and you will see you can go from the triangular shapes to the rounded shapes, which I think is pretty cool. And you could definitely do some very characterful designs with that. And the last thing here is the dots on the I and the J here. You can get circles or squares. Rectangles, I guess, is more accurate. So that is Stupid Sans. It is another stupid sans serif, geometric sans serif. Shoplift Gothic. So this is the one that's the inspiration from ITC Corinthian by Brignall. I forget. I apologize. This is actually inspired. Brignall or Corinthian was actually inspired by Eric Gill Sans, and Edward Johnston's railway type. So, you know, like I said earlier with the Frere-Jones Cassis, or no, not Frere-Jones, with the GT Canon, where they said, you know, they weren't referencing anything historic. Type is always historic. It's always coming from somewhere. So, you know, it's just an evolution forever and ever and ever. But we've got Shoplift Gothic here. and you can see up close what you're getting from this. I did compare the two. You know, I don't have ITC Corinthian. It's actually kind of hard to get. The only place you can get it is on my fonts, because ITC is owned by Monotype. They own the rights to all the ITC fonts. But I did compare, and it is very faithful to the original. The only difference, though, is going to be that this is going to come in many more styles, and not only more weights. So let me go ahead and show you this in thin, nice and thin there. But this is actually going to be coming in true italics. Let me double check that I'm right on that. I'm like 80% sure. Let's check this one here. Am I right? Am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong. Doesn't say anything. Oh yeah, true italics. Okay, I'm right. I'm right. My brain does function. So the cool thing about this one is that Corinthian never came in italic, as far as I know. Even if you look up fonts in use like ITC Corinthian, you don't find anything. I really don't think that this was a super popular typeface. You get one entry, and it's this logo that could be any geometric sans serif. So I do think this is a really interesting one that could turn out to be like a real sleeper hit. So I think that it's accurately doing the homage, but it's doing it in the best way, where it's expanding the typeface. So it's going to have way more weights. You can already see it's already got a much thinner and a much lighter version of the font, and it's going to have true italics. I know where we can see a preview of the true italics. We are in the PDF here on the right, and you can see right here we're getting this tiny preview of what the true italics are going to be. So I don't know if that right there is the true italic, but it might be. That might be the preview that we're getting. That does look a little bit slanted to me, so I'm not sure if that's the true italic or not. The A is different than this A, but like we said before, you can swap out that A for a real one. Wait, no, that was the last one. So I don't know, maybe they swapped out that A, so maybe that is the true italic. We'll find out. That was Shoplift Gothic. That was by Love Letters. Let me go ahead and show you both these on Future Fonts real quick. So we've got Shoplift Gothic. This one is $40. That's the one that is the ITC Corinthian homage. That's going to be expanded quite a bit. Right now, there are only 2 weights on that. That's from Love Letters. The other Love Letters typeface to release this week from Future Fonts is Stupid Sans. Straightforward. It's a geometric sans serif. Like it or not, that's what it is. $60. There's 3 weights on that. I would assume this one's also going to be expanded. If you look at the notes here, it says, what's next? Extra weights, accents for the extended Latin support. You can download the trials for both of these. That's what I've got here. I've got the trials on both of these, and let me go ahead and make both of these the same size. I've got the trials on both of these, and they are the full typefaces. So I think that's really cool that you can get the trials for both of these. Like I said, these have excellent all-inclusive license, all-inclusive perpetual license. So when you get it, you get desktop, web, app. You can use it for everything, and it's forever. You don't have to renew it every year, which is frustrating when you have to do that. And we're going to see some of them that you do have to do that with in some of the typefaces that we're going to look at soon. So that was Love Letters, two new releases this week. The next one we're going to look at here is Print Sans, and this is coming from Faire Type. So Print Sans, this is from Faire Type. You might recognize Faire Type print, and that is because Faire Type this is the 3rd addition to the print super family coming from Faire Type. So there is print, print sans, and print script. I think it's going to be easier for me to pull this up in Affinity real quick and just show you these 3 different ones, because I don't want to have to click through different web pages. Print family is on the top there. That is going to be the serif, and it's got some really cool optical sizing. You can change the weight on it. Print sans, this is what we're going to look at today. Print sans, this is the new release. It's got optical sizing there, so you can optically size your sans serif. It's got the weight as well, but it also has a slant. So you can do the italic axis on that one. Print family is the script one. So this one's just going to have, it's got different weights on it, but it also has the optical sizing as well. So similar similarly to, or no, it would just be similar, right? Similar to what we saw from Grilli type earlier, where they were trying to create, the standard sans serif, the standard serif. I think we're getting a similar goal, a similar attempt here from Faire type. They've got the script version, the serif version, and the sans serif. One thing to note about the print is the serif version, there is no italic version of this print family on the top of print. Print sans does have that variable axis to where you can turn this into italic. Obviously, you could also just click and turn this into an italic, but they do have the italic there. But when print was released, it was released alongside print script. So it was assumed that you were going to use print script for the italics and print for, your Romans. Some people might find that to be a deal breaker, and I think it's possible that print family could get italics, like true italics at some point. But for now, just know that print sans, the one we're looking at today, does have italics, but print does not. I think its italics are print script for the time being. Let's go back to the website real quick. Let me show you. I was going to go to their Instagram. Let's see if we can hop in their Instagram super fast. We really do have to be really fast on this. Well, they're just kind of showing the same thing here. You can see, though, they've got all three of the typefaces. This is probably a nicer demonstration than what I'm showing you. So you can see how all three of them work together. So this is doing the script. Look at all those swashes. It's crazy. I think it was episode number 16 that we looked at this. So if you want to go and look at all of, if you want to look at my review of the original print script releases, you can do that there. But you can see exactly how well these work together. Especially with that optical sizing, you can change the contrast of all of them at once. So you can see this is the print sans and print script paired together, and they can optically change these to where they're just so cohesive. I think this is a great attempt at being like the everything, super family. And you definitely need a sans serif if you're going to have a super family. So there you go right there. You can see the different weights on this one. So these are all they're doing low, medium, and high contrast. I kind of wish they would have stuck them all at the same contrast so we could see them all together, but it is what it is. You can see all of these that are mixed together much better now. Let's hop back into Affinity, and I'm going to just showcase a little bit of print sans real quick. One thing that I find interesting, so there are 3 different optical sizes that are set, but you can do these on the slider. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. There are 3 different optical sizes, and typically you see, optical sizing is, I would say, I would say that it's more important for serif typefaces than sans, because the serifs can get lost and stuff like that. But if you're doing a high contrast sans serif, then suddenly you do have to worry about the optical sizing much, much more than just like the spacing and things like that. Optical sizing is always great, but I would say it's mandatory with a good serif. It's not always mandatory with a good sans serif. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that. That's kind of a blanket statement that doesn't really hold water. But what I find interesting here is that there are 3 different sizes here. There's text. Let's go ahead and do these in the drop down, because there is text regular right here, and it's got a little bit of contrast. There is fine regular. So there's text fine, and then there's just print sans. Fine has a lot of contrast. And then if we go back to the beginning here, can I do it? There it is. There's almost no contrast, or there's very low contrast in the regular print weight. So what's interesting, though, is that these were made to work at different sizes. So when you would do like a serif typeface, typically what you would see is, do I have the serif version? Typically what you would see when you were working with a serif is you would go from the low contrast right here. This would be the smallest size, because at super small sizes, your serifs are just going to get lost. They're going to be gone if they're really small. They're going to disappear. So you have to have lower contrast, bigger, chunkier serifs at small sizes. And when you get to the big display sizes, you can do the high contrast stuff like that. But what I thought was interesting, because we're doing the sans, actually, we got it right here. When you're looking at the sans, the text version has some contrast on it, because when you're reading at smaller sizes, you want to be able to have a little bit of contrast to help with the readability of it. Regular has the low contrast, and then fine, when you get up to like the really big sizes, so this would be like the display size, has a bunch of contrast. So I find it was kind of funny because there's kind of like this bell curve of like when it's really small, you have some contrast. When it's not, like maybe like a subhead or some or a header or something like that, you're going to go with the low contrast. But then if you want to go super big, then you can go with high contrast. I do have one complaint, and that is that fine doesn't necessarily scream big sizes to me. Like fine, I wrote fine lines or fine print because in my mind, fine was going to be like micro. It was going to be like the super small font until you look at it and you're like, oh, it's high contrast, so it has to be fine lines. But here I've laid out all three of them. We've got the fine up there for the header. We've got the regular print sans for the subhead. And then I've set the text here in the, obviously, print sans text. So I think they work really well together. Obviously, you can combine the full super family for just insane amounts of typography. But even if you only bought the print sans, I think that you've got a very cohesive typeface here. And with the optical sizing and stuff, you're going to be set for almost any use case that you can find. It does come with a premium price tag though. So you are going to have the premium price tag with this. If we go to purchase here, maybe it will go. I think it's messing up because I have it zoomed in right now. If you go to purchase this, solid license, just desktop web app, love that. Your client, oh no, yourself, you put your name in there, objectives, you pick your size, and you can see that it is $1,134. But you're getting 42 total families. You've got the 3 sub families, 7 weights for each, 7 italics on all those. You've got the 3 different variable axes that's going to be able to do all that stuff for you. Comes with 605 glyphs, 17 open type features. You know, when it comes to like being able to do everything with one font, that's, you know, that's not too much different than paying $300 for each one of these. If you had to buy 3 different fonts, you know, or no, sorry, it'd be like $400. If you had to buy 3 different fonts for $400, you know, you'd be doing the same thing that this one font can do with just variable axes, which I think is pretty impressive. Yeah, so I know that price tag's not going to be for everybody, but for the right person, I think that this could kind of do everything for you. We do have 3 more typefaces to get through. Man, I'm going to burn through the next 3 really fast. I wish I didn't have to. Let's just stick in Affinity here. This next one is Astilbe. Hopefully I'm saying that right. This one's coming from DualType. Let me switch my notes here. This one's coming from DualType. Ooh, I do have this already loaded up in What Can My Font Do? You know, if you're a regular here, that I'm a fan of What Can My Font Do, because it will show you everything that your font can do. This one here, you can see, if we zoom in on this, this is a variable font. It has 569 characters, but I always list the number of glyphs. Why do I say this? Because 569 characters is cool. You know, that's how many characters it's gonna have, how many letters, numbers, things like that. Like these are gonna be your characters. We'll go down to the characters in 2 seconds. But it has 1,103 glyphs. So you know this is gonna be doing something different. It's going to be doing something more than just a typical font. It does have 1 axis. That's going to be the weights. And then it has 30 layout features. Let me go scroll down to characters real quick. Let me get this back to a normal size. So we've got this zoomed in really big, but you can see these are your characters. Let me go ahead and fix that. These are your characters. You can scroll through. It's pretty typical. But if this is all that you looked at, you can see some nice ligatures and stuff like that. If this is all that you looked at, you'd be like, oh, cool. Like it has all of the workhorse features I would expect. Small caps, ligatures, circled numbers, fractions, numerators, denominators. It's got capital, punctuation and stuff like that. It's even got a couple of manicules. I always forget. It's got a couple of little hands. You know, it's got everything you would need for a workhorse typeface. But if you look at what this font can actually do when it has all those glyphs, let's pull it up in Affinity. Let's do that. If you were to look at all of the features this has, it has a ton of alternates. It has a ton of different numbers and things. Like, look at these numbers right here. you know, typically you could do something like this where you could put like your circled, let me see. You could do like your circled number on there and stuff like that. Turn that off. You could do something like that. But what you can do with this typeface is put any amount of numbers on there that you want, and it's going to put them all together. I apologize, I've added a space in here. Let's delete that. And it's going to jam them all together. So already we're seeing like one really cool thing that this can do. You can also do the outlined, you know, the big outline, the big Nintendo circle on there if you want to. But this has a bunch of alternates for the letters. You can slash your zeros. You can do old style numbers. You can do regular numbers. It has so many things that you wouldn't typically see in a typeface like this that is obviously very calligraphic. Earlier we were talking about how GT standard or GT Canon was very much like a digital font. This one is the opposite. This is based on broad nibbed calligraphy, and you can see it there. It's very warm. It feels very human. You can see all those tips and edges and the broad nibbed strokes that would result from a pen like that. But it doesn't feel like, you know, it doesn't feel restrictive. You could use this for body copy, which I think is a really great thing. I feel bad because DualType did such a great job with this, and they actually did give me the full version of this to test out. And man, when I tell you that there's so much here that you could do, one thing to note, like one reason why this is a workhorse is because there's so much clarity. Look how open these counters are on these. The F or the C, the G, you're not having this slightly splayed M on there. These aren't going to close up on you. You could read these at really small sizes, and it's going to have the clarity of something like the geometric sands that we looked at earlier. But it's doing it with so much more character because of that calligraphy inspiration or calligraphy base. Man, they do such a good job with all of their typefaces, but I'm really impressed with this one. I put this medium italic in here so you could see the italic, but I put this here so that we could see that even at like dark mode, like you could switch this from dark mode to light mode, and you're gonna be able to read this just as easy on either one of them. You know, it's gonna look nice no matter how you're setting that, which I think is really impressive. Let me show you a few things here with the alphabet while we have a couple minutes, because what you can do is play around with these alternates. Man, I'm really messing these up, aren't I? Let's see if we can find the stylistic sets here. I apologize. Maybe we could do it better. There are all these really cool alternates on here, but I'm having trouble pulling them up because you have to do them like one at a time. So like I could do the Q here real quick. They disappear when I get into Affinity. Okay, let's pull up the DualType website. Let's pull it up. We do have two more fonts to get through after this, but I think they have the features down here at the bottom. Yeah, here's all the features. Okay, so you've got your weights on there, obviously. They've got the calligraphy inspired, the old style numbers, like I said. They've got tabular figures. They've got the open counter, so you're going to have the clarity, the case sensitive stuff, the circled figures. Do they have the Q and stuff that I was just looking at? No, rip. Okay, we're going to have to move on. I apologize. Just know that this one does have a lot of really cool alternates for the letters and stuff like that. Unless I'm thinking of a different font. Maybe I am thinking of a different font. But yeah, this is Astilbe. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's from DualType, designed by Jen Ramirez. 18 styles, 9 weights. We can go ahead and look at those real quick. 9 weights going from hairline. When do you see a good hairline these days? I feel like you never see hairline fonts anymore. Let me go ahead and do both of these at once. Hairline. This is an excellent. You have to have a really solid skeleton for your font to be able to pull off a hairline. And if anyone can do it, it's DualType. So they're going from hairline all the way up to black. Yeah, excellent typeface. Check it out. That one is from DualType. The next one we're going to look at is Postamp. I apologize. We don't have time to dig into this one too deep. Next time that I'm doing this many fonts, I'm just going to have to go earlier in the day. We're just going to have to do like a 2-hour live stream instead, so I have plenty of time. Postamp. This one is inspired, can you guess, by Postamps, by one particular Postamp right here. It's this one right here. This is definitely worth checking out. Please go look at the links in the description. This one is by Fontfabric, Postamp Grotesk. There is a great backstory for this one, but it's inspired by this James Buchanan Postamp, and you can see right here, this lettering that's on that one is what inspired this. And I've got this laid out here. It's never going to look as good as the hand lettering. But the one thing that this one's doing that's different than it's a source inspiration, you can probably guess from the top right there, is that it's got the compressed version, but it's also got this mixed version, which is very strange. So the mixed version is on top here. Let's actually do it on the bottom. So you've got 2 variable axes on this. You've got the weight, which is nice. You know, you can take this from thin all the way up to bold. And then you've got this width slider. And I originally thought, because I was just looking at this alphabet, and I was like, oh, the width slider is going to just change, you know, it's going to make the O, the C, the G, the Q wide. But wait a minute, it's not changing this C right here. What's going on? Why is one of the P's wide and the other one's not? Here's the thing that's frustrating about this font. And I do think this is a fun font. I love the backstory. You know, they're pulling from this tiny little postage stamp, turning it into a typeface. It's really cool. But the problem is there's no way to control this width. So if I just type a bunch of O's right now, let's zoom out so it's not messing it up. If I just type a bunch of O's right now, I'm not able to like decide which one is which. There's no way to choose this in the settings. And if you delete one, if you're like, okay, cool, I got the compressed one, I want that, you delete the big one, and oh no, the first one's big. Oh no, the first one's big. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, there's no way to control which character is going to be wide and which one isn't. So I don't know how useful this is when you can't determine which width that you want. If you did want this just for the compressed, I would say that it's a solid typeface for that. It's got some, it's got some fun things like an alternate ampersand. It's got some really cool ligatures that I can't show you because I have the trial version. But the one thing that makes this kind of frustrating for me is that you can't control the width on the characters. So I don't know how you would do that. I think you might be better off just buying a font that, has the width like we saw earlier with GT, and just going in here like this and deciding like, okay, I'm going to make this one like really wide and just have like, it would suck to like manually do this for a big block of text. But I don't know. Your weight kind of gets messed up though, so that's one thing that wouldn't really work. Postamp here, obviously the weight's going to be perfect, so maybe that alternative doesn't really work. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. If Fontfabric wants to let me know that I'm getting this wrong, I will spend a little more time looking at this one next week, and we'll figure that one out. But it's interesting. It's 150 for the family. There's no lowercase, but it does have Cyrillic. It's variable. The mix is kind of interesting, but it's kind of broken at the same time. But yeah, so check that one out. I have that linked in the description. This was my favorite one from the week, and I'm so sad that I have 1 minute to cover it. Maybe I'll just push this to next week, and we'll do it right at the start. This is Galmi. I think I'm saying that right. You can see it right there. It's so much fun. I am just going to go ahead and turn my face cam on, though. Let me go ahead and do the face cam. Quick preview of Galmi right there. Man, I really like that font, and so I don't want to rush it in 1 minute right now. We'll do it at the top of the show for Typography News number 32. Never done this before. Never like pushed a font into the next episode, but that's what we're gonna do because I like the font too much to mess it up and have some really cool stuff going on. So that is going to be it for this episode. Definitely go check out some fonts if you found any of those interesting. I have no affiliation. The links are in the description. Check out Type Advisor. Schedule a meeting with Doug. I think that it would be worth your 30 minutes to do that. And then definitely go download the Recess Playbook. Trust me, there are so many resources in there, and I know I blabbed on about them for like 5 or 10 minutes, but there's so much more in those 200 pages than even I could spend time sitting here talking about. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. I've been Curtis Simpson. This was Typography News number 31. I will see you next Sunday, same time, same place. Not going to schedule it, but I will be here. I hope you will too. See you next time.